Okay, Ellen, we're going to have that quick delay that I warned you about as Facebook streams us over to chat with our mighty mystery fans. And it looks like we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am thrilled, pun intended, to be hosting the incredible and real-life PI, Ellen McGarrahan, author of Two Truths and a Lie, out in the US now. Ellen, joining us from London, welcome to Mighty Mysteries. Tell us about your book.
Thank you so much. It's so amazing to be here. Just incredible work that you're doing, and I'm just thrilled. So as you mentioned, I am a private investigator. I've been a private investigator for 25 years. And what my book is doing, the story that I'm telling in my book is the story of my own investigation into a mystery that was in the center of my own life. And it's an investigation into whether the man that I saw executed in Florida in the electric chair was innocent. In 1990, I was a newspaper reporter, and I was assigned to go and witness the execution of a man in Florida State Prison in the electric chair. And the electric chair actually malfunctioned during the execution, and he caught on fire. His head caught on fire. And after that happened, that caused me to really have a lot of questions and reevaluate my life. And I ended up leaving journalism, and I became a private investigator. I moved out to San Francisco and started working out there. And for the next 25 years, I worked on learning to be an investigator. I formed my own business. I'm licensed. I trained doing that. And during that period of time, new evidence and news reports really began to gather that the man that I had seen executed was innocent. And that really haunted me. That was something that I found very, very difficult to even contemplate. And so I put it aside for a really long time. And then I finally decided that it was going to be something that I wasn't going to be able to run away from. I was actually going to have to figure that out. And so in 2015, I kind of put my life and my work and my job on hold. And I went and decided that I really needed to use my investigation skills to investigate this mystery that had really taken over my own life. And so I went back to Florida, and then in investigating, I ended up going literally around the world. I went to Ireland, I went to Australia. I had thought it was going to be kind of a dusty court case, kind of a couple of interviews kind of investigation, but I ended up very quickly in the Florida of the 1970s, which is when the crime that was at the basis of this happened. And it was it was just a crazy world. I found, cocaine and religious cults, and I ended up with jewel thieves and movie stars and the Irish Republican Army. It got really very, very, very chaotic. And it also led me to a really dark place inside my own life, which is something that I really hadn't expected starting out. And so ultimately the book is about finding resolution. It's about confronting your own past. It's about looking at your own mistakes. It's very much about trauma, but it's also very much about healing.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Well, Ellen, I have to tell you, I am reading it now, and I am floored. Because, as you just talked about, this is an intense book. This is a crazy story. And what I love about nonfiction, as a nonfiction writer myself, is that, as Mark Twain said, truth is stranger than fiction. So whereas novelists, fiction writers, those poor jerks have to make their books believable, but nonfiction writers can lean into the truth being stranger than fiction, embrace it, and go where the story leads. You don't have the burden of trying to make it feel believable. You can say, when someone says, oh, that would never happen, you can say, oh, but it did. And you can lean into that, and you do. And it is also so incredibly beautifully written. I mean, this book sometimes I just pause and reread sentences because it's so beautifully crafted. So I'm so excited to have you here, and I'm so excited to talk about all of that. I just want to pause and welcome everyone on Facebook. So my partner in crime, pun intended, Ms. Margaret Pinard, is handling things over there. Margaret's also an author, and we partner on these every week. So Margaret, we're in good hands with her. And all of our mystery and thriller fans, welcome. If you've been here before, you know how this works. And if you're new, here's how it works. This is your chance to talk to our featured author today, Ellen McGarrahan. And the coolest part is this woman is also a private investigator in real life. So, wow, we've never had a private investigator on before. So you can ask her anything about this gorgeous and powerful and moving new book that she has written. You can ask her about her writing process. You can ask her anything you want. This is your chance to talk to her. So I'll be monitoring things over here on my second screen. Gail is saying she loves these snowy day tea time chats, and this is giving us tons of hearts up. People are saying, wow, what a powerful story. What an incredible story. Gail saying she loves these tea time events. Patricia saying, whoa, what a crazy story. Absolutely. You're all reading my mind. Wow. Patricia says, mystery nightmare. Ellen, how did you cope? Were you able to talk through what you witnessed to finding your own peace? Patricia, getting right to the heart of the issue. Ellen, tell us.
That is a beautiful question. And it's actually a question that I didn't know to ask myself for a really long time, because when I was a newspaper reporter, I thought that the reaction that I was having, the kind of the emotions that I was feeling about it were just not, I was supposed to be like a really tough reporter and just, handle it and move on. And I did really try to do that for a really long period of time. And it wasn't until I just kept reading the reports of that the man whose execution I witnessed was innocent. That's when it just really began to be something that I felt haunted by. Ultimately, I think investigating the case was very helpful, because finding, really digging down into the facts of the case and being able to really explore those and kind of come up with conclusions and resolutions in that way was really helpful. It was a murder that happened in 1976 on the side of a highway in Florida, in a rest area that had long since been torn down. So I started with almost no information. I had some news clippings and an interview, and that's where I started. And I built on that and ended up, spending months in Florida and then going around the world to talk to people. So that was all very helpful. But the other thing that really surfaced during this was the trauma of it, which I had not understood that I was carrying any kind of sense of trauma about it, which sounds a little bit like I should have known that, but I just didn't. I had put it away like so hard that I just couldn't find it. But working on really understanding the case brought me into sort of daily contact with not just the execution, but the murders themselves. And that was just very hard to deal with. And ultimately it did force me to address it. And so I ended up doing a round of EMDR therapy, which I think is just incredibly well known. It should be more known than it is, and it's incredibly effective. And that, combined with the writing of the book, I think was what really enabled me ultimately to put it behind me and come to peace about it.
Yes, thank you for that incredibly thoughtful answer, Patricia, a top community member here. Thank you for your incredibly thoughtful question. And I just want to pause and say, Ellen, I think you need to give yourself grace. Of course, you couldn't find that trauma at first. And I think that as I'm reading this book, I understand that for several reasons. Number one, you were a kid. You were just fresh out of school. You were, and there's a scene in the book where you're talking about how 5 years earlier you were sitting in the classroom analyzing the executioner's song, right. And then to go from that classroom experience to being this young, eager to work hard, eager to establish herself reporter. And to have the Bureau say, yes, we should send Ellen. Ellen volunteered, but Ellen didn't know what she was volunteering for. And for the Bureau chief to say, yeah, we should send her, the new person, to go and witness someone's death. Now, I think, you make it clear in the book, nobody actually thought this was going to happen. Usually there's a stay of execution. But your friend Tex was saying, it's really no big deal. He had witnessed 2. Usually they don't happen, but if they do, it's over quickly and you're not going to be affected. Nobody was really dealing with it. Also, it was 1990. We weren't having the conversations 30 years ago that we're having now, honoring the people's trauma. And so a lot has changed, but I think those 3 factors, and then also there's all this pressure to be, a woman and to be able to handle things, to be able to move on, to take it and to process it and, not really deal with it, just be okay. And I think now only in the past year or years, we're really starting to say, actually, this is, this is intense. This is a lot. And let's pause here and deal with it. So, and I think your book is bringing up and honoring that and dealing with that in a really powerful and meaningful way. And thank you, Patricia, for honing in on that so quickly, and Ellen for that thoughtful answer. Margaret saying Florida of the 1970s, cocaine, drug cartels, IRA activity, jewel thieves. Wow, are we missing anything? I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty crazy. Did you have any idea that was where the story was going to go when you started to investigate it?
I had no idea. And I just want to thank you for your really perceptive comments earlier about that. It really is. And especially I was a young reporter and I was the only woman there, and I did feel pressure. And I like the way the world has changed, though, of course, I think we need to continue going in that direction. In terms of Florida, I don't think I would have imagined that I would get into this particular story, because I did think I've done a lot of investigations where I go back in time. It's one of the things I think that I have a lot of experience with as a private investigator. And I like to think of private investigation in any case as time travel. You're sitting here in the present, but you have to go back and understand something that happened in the past. And to do that, you can do that through public records, and you can do it through interviews. It's kind of just the basic gumshoe stuff. And so I have a lot of experience in doing that. But in my 2 decades of investigation, I've never stumbled into a world that is like 1970s Florida. It was on the cusp of when, as far as I understand it, the cocaine trade there was what hadn't become sort of highly professional. It wasn't Miami Vice yet. It was just a bunch of high school friends who had stumbled into a very, very high stakes, very dangerous gig. And things kind of got out of control and they spiraled out from there. And so it was a surprise to find myself in that world. And it was also something that was really, really interesting to talk to people about. And I was really amazed actually at the people that I was talking to were casting back 40 years in their memories, and they were probably able to talk about things now that they wouldn't have then, just because, the way that memory and time can work, it can make it easier actually to talk about stuff like that now than it would have been at the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Trisha says, this sounds fascinating. Trisha, you're reading my minds. You're speaking for all of us. Absolutely. I am completely fascinated. I want to make sure I don't miss a single question or comment. Anissa, a top community member, Anissa Joy saying, how long did you spend investigating these events? Yeah. Walk us through this. So you're a young, eager Beaver reporter. You are the only woman in your bureau. You're eager to prove yourself. You want to be tough. You want to do this. You go to this execution. Then you end up in San Francisco. And there's a really powerful moment where you're watching 2020 one night. Walk us through the start of this, where it all started.
Yeah. About 2 years after the execution, I had moved to California and I was working as a construction worker. I kind of threw my life out the window, and I set tile for a number of years out there, which was a very, very heavy, difficult job. And it also wasn't something that my life to the date had prepared me for. And so it was an interesting way to be in the world. And I came home one night and I watched 2020 because I was still, of course, a news person. And they had a show on that that essentially, again, said that it was a news report that that said that the person that I had witnessed his execution basically said that he was an innocent person. I realize I'm stumbling here, but when I get into this, it just tends to trigger the trauma. I apologize. I'm not particularly articulate when I start talking either about the execution or this particular thing. So in any case, I saw it on TV and I literally froze. And I just, it's like just couldn't believe it. And that's really, I think, when my thinking about it started, but my first reaction was to put it away. And I really put it away for another almost 10 years. And then I realized that I had to confront it. And so for my investigation, what I did is I just do what I always do, which is for my, in my professional life, I just try to talk to everyone and look at everything. So I figured out where the court records were. Court records are public records. You can go look at them. So I looked at the public records and I found the old case reports and I looked through them. And then I looked through, those public records for the names of the people who had been witnesses at the time, like not now, but back then in the 1970s. And I went and I found those people and I talked to them. And that's just like a very basic kind of gumshoe investigation that, that is something that I do sort of all the time professionally. And it was just interesting to do it for my own life, actually.
It's fascinating to do it for your own life. And so Anissa, a top community member, asking the good questions as always. So Anissa, the timeline is in 1990, Ellen, Eager Beaver reporter, witnesses this execution. It's too painful and traumatic. She leaves that for a couple of years. She's sitting in San Francisco trying to move on. She turns on the TV one night and 2020 has her article with her byline up on the TV. I mean, can you imagine? You're just trying to relax, have a nice tea, have a snack before dinner, and there is your article. And Barbara Walters, wearing a yellow suit, is saying, was this man innocent?
Right.
Brain blown, like, oh my God, what a crazy moment. Too much, puts it away. Then in 2011, Ellen realizes she's not going to get peace until she investigates this. She has to do what she does so well, which is to be a private investigator in her real life. And she has to go back and investigate this case. She has to understand, was this man innocent? Now, 10 years later, 2021, the book just came out February 2nd. You guys have got to read it. It is so powerful and it is so incredibly beautifully written. And just as Ellen is being so present and so open-hearted and so authentic in this moment, all of that energy comes out on the page. I'm riveted. Like, no, I can't, I'm devouring this book, but I'm devouring it slowly because I'm enjoying every beautifully crafted phrase. So grab it today through our partnership with bookshop.org. Support independent bookstores, because we want independent bookstores to be in the world when we come out of this pandemic. Patricia says, I'm so glad you were able to heal, not forget, but to live without fear or guilt. I ache for you. Oh, and anyone that has been violated by trauma. On a different note, did you have a chance to speak to the innocent man's family? If so, how did you approach them? I'm sure their hearts are shattered. And you did talk to Jesse Tafaro's mom, and also his partners.
I didn't. She's actually deceived.
Okay, I'm sorry. She does appear in the book though with comments in articles where she's protesting her son's, she's advocating her son's innocence.
Right, and she sadly died 10 years before. I believe it was 10 years.
I'm sorry. She was commenting when Sunny, who was his girlfriend at the time, when she was released from prison.
Right. Exactly.
That Jesse's mom was commenting and saying she's glad Sunny, who has been released, Sonia, has been released from prison, but she is sad that her son was not.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. I just wanted to correct a statement earlier, which is that my investigation concerned whether or not the Jesse Tafaro, who was the person I saw executed, was innocent. So the book is about that search.
Yes, thank you. That it is the search for that truth that leads you back to the 1970s Florida, the cocaine, the cartels, and something from your own history as well. Right. So a very powerful and far-reaching book. Margaret saying that she loved that you said, I like the way the world has changed on how we process trauma. I loved that line as well. Thank you, Margaret. Margaret saying also, I like to think of any investigation as time travel. Ellen, I love this. Can you talk a little more about the time travel? That also caught my interest. Thanks, Margaret. That's a great question.
Another great, really great question. Well, I think investigators we're here in the present, and then we occupy the space where what we're investigating happened. And we do that by talking to people mainly, and also by seeing records that are created contemporaneously. So not now, but then. And, I think that there's an idea that I have formed through all these years of investigation, which is that we do live on in the lives and memories of the people who know us. And I think that's one of the privileges of being an investigator, is being able to talk to people about the lives that we share with each other, which is really, we're connected in ways that I think possibly we don't always recognize or don't always honor. And it's always amazing to me to be able to talk to people. So that's the part of the work that I feel is brings a lot to my life. And it's also a very, very big part of the time travel, because we remember, we hold on to things, we speak from our memories, and the job of the investigator is to take all those pieces of the puzzle and put them down and sort of see how they fit, and then see where the truth is. But that is the as we go through time, we kind of we take our experiences with us, and so that's the time travel aspect of it.
My heart feels so full. I mean, this heartfelt, open-hearted approach that you bring to your work of honoring and remembering and searching for truth. My heart feels so full. What about you guys? Isn't this such an incredible, heart-filling interview? Wow. Ellen, thank you so much. Patricia saying, please don't apologize. Triggers are powerful. You are safe here. You are appreciated. We value all your thoughts and this journey. Patricia, another yogi, or I mean, I don't know if you're a yogi or not, Patricia, but that sounds very yogic, and I could not have said it more beautifully or more lovingly. Thank you for that. I love my community here because of people like Patricia. Thank you for that. That's beautiful. Question, do you talk about being a construction worker in San Francisco in the 90s and that, quote, throwing out of your life plan in the memoir? Great question.
I do. I tried to be really honest in the memoir. It's a book that's a kind of a combination of a true crime and memoir, which I realize is something it's kind of a new aspect of it. And I initially tried to write it just straight true crime, just the facts, because that's my training as an investigator and also as a reporter. But I found that in order to really tell the story that the story needed a narrator, and I realized it was actually going to have to be me. Yeah. And that's essentially when I realized that I was going to have to do the thing that I never do as an investigator. I don't open up. The word private is literally built into my job description. I'm a private investigator. And so trying to actually get myself on the page felt really, 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 really difficult. But I think ultimately it was the thing that was very healing. And so I do write about, I write about essentially a lot more than I plan to. And it all has to do with the case, and it also has to do with like the experience, the real life experience of actually being a private detective, the kind of risks and the perils and the cost of it, in addition to the adventure of it. And that was something that was really interesting to explore in the book.
Oh, I love that. Anissa saying, I can't wait to read this. Thank you. Patricia saying, Ellen, do you realize how brave you are? I am blown away. Patricia, once again, could not have said it better myself. I am also just sort of sitting here in awe of this woman's courage and incredible, open-hearted bravery to put yourself on the page like that and to be so open and so vulnerable. This is really special. Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. ground groundbreaking new genre, true crime and memoir. Bam. Patricia would like to know, who did you lean on when you were writing? Ooh, another good question. Yeah, what was that like? Who did you lean on?
Who do I lean on?
When you were writing this, did you have a team or someone who was supporting you, your wife, or?
Amazing, amazing editors, I have to say. I have an absolutely steadfast and wonderful agent. And I have, my husband is my partner, and he's an amazing editor himself and a writer. And so it was really great, although very difficult to get the feedback. I wrote probably 12 drafts, and it started as a mammoth, massive thing. And I slowly began to find the story. But I had a ton of help from some amazingly talented people, all of whom, for some reason, were able to kind of ride out all of the difficulties of me trying to figure out a way to tell the story. And I absolutely couldn't possibly be more grateful, because there's no way I could have just sat down and kind of done what I used to do as a journalist, which is to just write it on deadline and start at the beginning, end up at the end, and I'm done. It was a surprise to realize that it actually was much, 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 much more difficult than that. It took me a really long time to figure it out.
Yes, and there's a tightness to your writing that I think I see in authors who are former journalists. There's a tightness and there's a beautiful precision to your writing. But also, we're talking about a book that is this wide instead of an article that's a couple hundred words. Right. So that's a big shift. Patricia's saying, I am shameless. I want to go for a walk with Ellen and take Sarah's dog for a walk. Patricia,
sounds good.
It's a date. Let's do it. I'll bring Pelu the Wonder Pup. We'll walk and we'll talk with Ellen, because we'll just go on a walk, because that sounds fantastic. Margaret saying 12 drafts, good gravy, lady. Well done. Tell us about the 12 drafts. Did this book change drastically from draft one? If so, how?
It changed a lot. It changed in terms of not so much the case aspect of it, but the trying to figure out how to write about being a private investigator changed a lot, and it got a lot closer to it just kind of focused in a lot more. And I've learned that I've read that writing is actually rewriting, and I think I really lived that truth for sure. It was a great experience. It was really interesting. I was really interested as a writer to realize that the whole idea of doing a terrible first draft is actually, for me, it turned out to be true, and also very productive. It's a great way to just get the thoughts out and then just keep working at it.
Oh, I love that. Margaret would like to know, has the PI business brought Ellen to London, or was it your author career? Yeah. What are you doing in London?
Just enjoying the city. I'm a city person. I really like it here. It's been interesting. No, it was just a decision to come over here.
Fantastic. Margaret's books actually center on England and Scotland, so I know that she is a fan. Wow. And I've lived in London as well, and I think that London's a great city, so that it definitely makes sense that you would want to spend some time over there. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I just realized we only have 2 minutes left with Ellen. So we're going to enter a lightning round. If anyone has any last questions for Ellen about the book, about her writing, about her PI business, go ahead and get them in the comments, and Margaret and I will get them right over to her. Meanwhile, something I want to know, Ellen, what Margaret's saying, I'm just being crazy jealous over here. I know Margaret needs to get back to London. We need this pandemic to end. Ellen, what is, there's so much to discuss about this book. And I think your search for truth and your search for justice and your search for peace and for resolution are certainly at the forefront. Is there anything else that, what do you want people to feel or learn having spent this time in your pages with you?
That's a really lovely question. I think one of the things that's really important to me, and of course it's in the title of the book, is that we learn to sort of sort through truth and lies, because I feel like it's something that we're really wrestling with now as in our new information environment, and that really learning to understand and analyze information, I think would be a really, really key thing. And just the, you know, the ways that that's possible to do and the necessity of it.
Oh, that's so interesting. One thing that I thought was really interesting, one of the many, is when you interview for your first PI job in San Francisco. You're in the job interview. You're chatting with the guy who's potentially going to hire you, and you're talking about why you want to do this work, and you tell him the story from your grade school days with, I believe, a nun. A sister, and somehow from this story he says to you, I'm going to hire you because you're motivated by guilt, which was really interesting because that's not what I took from that story. So what I took from this story is that whether it's in your career as a journalist or your career as a PI or your career as an author, what motivates you is the search for truth, the search for justice, and getting to that kernel of that truth, that kernel of that justice. What did you think of that moment? Do you think you're motivated by guilt? What was that about?
I think at the time I probably was, although I didn't realize it. It was one of those very perceptive comments that people make where you think, do I have a name tag? Am I wearing that?
I know, that was weird.
Yeah,
and crazy.
Well, I think it's a question, like it's just being a student of people that was possible to make that comment. I don't think I am now. I think it's justice and it's truth that motivate me. And I don't necessarily think those come from guilt, but I do feel like having experienced the world through that lens, it gave me the ability to really try to push through it and understand it better.
I love that. Gail, top community member here, Mighty Mystery member, saying, thank you, Ellen. Such a difficult real life story to process for you and your readers. Thank you for bringing it to us. The death penalty is a polarizing issue in the world. Gail, I could not have said that more eloquently. Thank you for that. And I think why, it's a polarizing issue for many reasons, but especially because when this happens, and then later you think, oh God, was this guy innocent? And it's irrevocable. It's that finality that's, so terrifying. One of the many terrifying aspects of this issue. Patricia saying, as a journalist, I'm sure sorry, so many comments are coming in. They're pushing up the other ones. Patricia saying, as a journalist, I'm sure as soon as you put pen to page, the words just flew, or did they? This is such a uniquely difficult story. Did you have to force the words, or was there so much welled up inside? It was a release to finally put it on paper. Do you have, okay, this is actually a 5-part question. So let's hear that part first, and then I'm going to give you the other parts.
No, it's the situation where the words are welling, but they're caught behind a dam. It was very difficult. It was a very difficult process. And I did find that it took a lot of just trial and error, painstaking drafts and just really trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to say. And I wish they had just come out, but they did not.
Which you would never know reading it because it flows so effortlessly on the page. It feels as though, as I'm reading it, it feels like this was a story that needed to be told, and it poured effortlessly and in fully formed, beautifully honed sentences, which of course I know is not the case, but that's what it feels like. Right. Patricia would like to know, so this is the other few parts of her question. Do you have any regrets about the writing of it?
I do not. No.
Good. Would you change anything about your process or what you wish you would have known before you took this on? Ooh, good question.
I don't think so. Again, and I appreciate the questions. I think they're wonderful, wonderful questions. And it's not stuff that I thought about before. So that's really interesting. But my instant reaction clearly is no. I think that the process, as difficult it was, ended up being a healing process. And I'm glad to have, even though it was very difficult, to have encountered the difficulties of both of the investigation and of my own journey with it. I think
I love that.
I think ultimately, I think EMDR was, I have tried to understand it, and I might be just speaking completely off the cuff here, but I think it was a therapy that was discovered right around 1990. So I do have a regret that that was something that I only availed myself of 3 decades later, because I do feel like living with trauma is a very difficult thing, and that the treatments are out there and that they work. And so being able to have the benefit of it now, if I had discovered that 30 years ago, I definitely think that that would have been a good thing. And I would urge, really, I read newspaper stories now about people who have witnessed a violent event, as I did. And I just think, wow, there's a therapy out there that works. And so that is probably the one thing that I wish I had a different journey with, and I would urge people to really avail themselves of it if it's something that they think would help.
I love that. I love that. And I have so many friends who have benefited from EMDR. It's really a powerful, incredible tool.
Yeah.
Well said. Margaret suggesting that Motivated by Guilt sounds like a good title for your next mystery.
I think, Margaret, we're going to have that walk, frankly.
Yeah, Margaret, you're coming on the walk with
Exactly.
Patricia and Paley
Right.
the Wonder Pup and me and Ellen. That's fantastic. Absolutely. Yes. So, okay, if Ellen writes a book, her next book, Motivated by Guilt, we remember you all saw it here first. This was the moment of genius, the moment of conception. It was a group effort.
Right.
That's your next title of your book. I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh. Well, Ellen, thank you so much for coming on here and for your open-heartedness, for your authenticity, for your transparency, for sharing with us. This has been a heart-filling, soul-enriching conversation. And Margaret just posted the link to the book in bookshop.org, Getting Hearts Up from Facebook. Guys, you have to read this book. It's so great. And come back and tell us what you think about it, because it's been absolutely, this book is just so beautifully written. I'm completely enraptured. People are saying, thank you so much for our mighty mystery guest, Ellen McGarrahan. Absolutely. Patricia saying, thank you all so much. Ellen, I wish you nothing but happiness and calm joy. Margaret, you're a rock star. Sara, I adore you muchly. Your yoga mat or mine, wink, wink. Oh my gosh, it just keeps getting better here. I need to go outside and build a cairn for Ellen as soon as the snow melts and I can find the backyard. Yes, we're having a blizzard here. Right. Absolutely. Thank you for spending your snowy afternoon with us, everybody. And thank you for all of your wonderful comments and questions for Ellen. This has been such a fascinating, fabulous conversation. I will see you all next week right here on A Mighty Mystery. And Ellen, I'm going to see you next time when you come back. Very cool. And with your next title of your book, which was designed right here.
Exactly. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing conversation, and I really feel like I've just I've learned a lot, and it's been really great. Thank you.
Oh my God, you're getting so many hearts up from Facebook. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I know you all have too. This has been, again, such a wonderfully enriching conversation. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you soon.